There is a cemetery in America where decades after the funerals, scientists walked between the graves with Geiger counters and the needles jumped. The bodies buried there are still radioactive. They will stay that way for over 1,000 years. These are the graves of women who were, quite literally, paid to glow. This is Graveyard Footnotes, history's strangest true stories, dug up. And today's graves glow in the dark. This is the story of the Radium Girls, young women who were poisoned, one tiny brushstroke at a time, by a company that knew exactly what it was doing, and who, while literally falling apart, changed the world. To understand this, you have to understand how people felt about radium in the early 1900s. Marie Curie had just discovered it, and the world went completely insane for the stuff. It glowed with an eerie light all on its own. It seemed magical, and fatally, it was marketed as not just safe, but good for you. Radium was everywhere. Radium toothpaste, radium face cream, radium chocolate. There was even radium water, sold as a health tonic that rich people drank by the bottle. People believed this glowing element was a miracle cure. Almost nobody understood that they were drinking and rubbing on their skin a powerful poison. And radium had one use that seemed perfect. Mixed into paint, it made things glow in the dark for years. So companies opened factories to paint glowing numbers onto watch dials, clock faces, and the instrument panels of soldiers in the First World War. And to do the delicate work, they hired young women, hundreds of them. It was a dream job for a working-class girl. Clean, well-paid, even glamorous. You sat at a bench in a bright room with a little pot of glowing greenish paint called Undark, and you painted tiny numbers all day. Some of the women painted hundreds of dials a shift. The pay was excellent. The work was, they were told, completely harmless. But the numbers on a watch are tiny, and to paint them, you need a very fine point on your brush. So the women were taught a specific technique. To shape the brush, they were told to slip it between their lips and twist it to a perfect point. Lip, dip, paint. Lip, dip, paint. Hundreds of times a day. Do you see the problem? Every single time they pointed that brush with their mouths, they swallowed a little bit of radium, day after day, month after month. When some of the women asked if this was safe, the company reassured them it was harmless. It might even put a little glow in their cheeks. So they kept licking the brushes. And at first, it seemed wonderful. The paint got everywhere, on their hands, their clothes, their hair. So the girls started having fun with it. They painted their fingernails to glow. They painted their teeth before a date to give a shining smile in the dark. Some wore their best dresses to work so they would sparkle later at the dance halls. Whole towns got used to seeing these glowing young women walking home in the dark, shimmering faintly like ghosts. Sisters worked side by side. Best friends got hired together. It was the best paying, most envied job a girl could get. For a few years, it really did look like a miracle. And then their teeth started to fall out. It usually began in the mouth, an aching tooth that would not heal. The dentist would pull it, and instead of healing, the empty socket would just keep festering. Then another tooth. Then the pain spread into the jaw itself. Here is what was happening inside them. The body cannot tell the difference between radium and calcium. So all that swallowed radium was being packed straight into their bones, exactly where calcium goes. And once it was in there, it sat in their skeletons and irradiated them from the inside, every second of every day. The jaw full of radium began to rot and die. Doctors called it radium jaw. In the worst cases, a dentist could remove a woman's entire lower jawbone, not with surgery, but by simply lifting it out with his fingers, because the bone had crumbled into something soft and dying. Some of the women's bones would even glow if you held them in the dark. And it did not stop at the jaw. The radium ate at their skeletons everywhere. Bones became so brittle that women snapped their own legs just by walking. Spines collapsed, making them shorter. Terrible tumors grew. One by one, young women in their 20s who had been perfectly healthy began to die in agony. They went from doctor to doctor, and nobody could explain it. Some doctors, unbelievably, were quietly paid by the radium companies to blame anything but radium. The women were dying, terrified, and being told their crumbling bones were their own fault. Because here is the part that turns this from a tragedy into a crime. The company knew They had known for years that radium was deadly. The scientists and managers who handled raw radium in the same buildings used lead screens, protective masks, and held it with long tongs. They protected themselves completely. And at the very same time, they were looking the women in the eye and telling them to put the radium brushes in their mouths. They knew the lip-pointing technique was poisoning their workers, and they said nothing because the glowing dials were extremely profitable and the women were cheap and replaceable. When the women started getting sick, the companies did not stop. They covered it up. They ran fake medical exams to look caring, then hid the alarming results from the women themselves. And most cruelly of all, they spread a rumor that the dying women were actually suffering from syphilis, a deliberate lie designed to shame them into silence. But the women did not stay silent. In New Jersey, a dial painter named Grace Fryer decided to fight back. It took her 2 years just to find a lawyer brave enough to take on a powerful corporation. By the time the case began, the radium had wrecked her so badly that she could barely walk, and her spine was collapsing. She and 4 other dying women, who the newspapers called the Radium Girls, took United States Radium to court. The scene was heartbreaking. Some of the women were so destroyed by the poison that they could not even raise their arms high enough to take the oath in the witness box. The country was horrified. Newspapers ran the story of the doomed glowing women suing the company that had poisoned them. The public outrage was enormous. In 1928, with the women too sick to wait years for a trial, the company finally settled, paying compensation and their medical costs. It was by then far too late to save them. And the fight was not over. A few years later, in Illinois, another group of poisoned dial painters took their own company to court. One of them, Catherine Donohue, was so close to death that she gave her final damning testimony from her own bed, weighing under 70 pounds, with the trial gathered around her. She won, and her victory was upheld all the way up the courts. It established something that had never truly existed before: the legal right of workers to hold a company responsible for slowly poisoning them on the job. Dying women who could barely lift their arms had just rewritten the rules. The case of the Radium Girls became a foundation stone of modern labor law. It led directly to stronger safety standards, the right to compensation for occupational disease, and eventually to the kind of workplace protections that quietly keep millions of people alive today. If your job is legally required to keep you safe, you owe a small debt to these women. There was a grim scientific legacy too. By studying what the radium had done to their bodies, scientists learned for the first time exactly how radiation poisons a human being from within. That terrible knowledge shaped the safety limits that later protected nuclear workers, X-ray technicians, and astronauts. And the radium never left them. It is still there, locked inside their bones, in their coffins, decades after they died. When researchers later opened some of the graves to study them, the remains were still dangerously radioactive, and will remain so for over 1,000 years. The glow they were paid for outlived them by centuries. We even know their names: Grace Fryer, Catherine Donohue, Molly Maggia, whose entire jaw was lifted out by her dentist. Real young women with dances to go to and futures to plan, who were poisoned for a glow and a profit, and who spent their last strength making sure it could never happen so easily again. Paid to glow, killed by a lie, and in dying, they forced an entire country to start protecting the people who work for it. History mostly filed them away under footnotes about watches and radiation. We just dug them back up, glowing faintly, exactly as they were. This has been Graveyard Footnotes. Subscribe and we will see you at the next grave.